So this is Lazenby Part 2. And down the bottom of Pasture Lane was Lazenby Station. This is about the, I don't know, 1870s, 1880s. This is a model ICI made of about, must have been in the early 1950s. You can see on there is no Grange estate. The other thing you'll notice is that they've actually got the line of the bypass in there right at the very bottom. Although it wasn't built until 15 years later. Look how rural it was, and right at the very north you can see there that there is no British Steel Lazenby. That line going across the roundabout is the trunk road. This is the old school, built in the 1870s, where we all went to school, and it's now the village hall. This is Lazenby School, which is now the village hall. This was the schoolyard, and at this end here were a couple of air raid shelters. Dark, gloomy places they were. Long since demolished. This is one of the classes at Lazenby School. You see the air raid shelter? Well, one of them at the back. There were in fact two of them. Some classic haircuts there. It marks you out as very poor. This is Lazenby School, 1954. This was 1950. This is the post office and shop, but next to it was this very old shop window. A lady called Mrs. Macfall lived in there. She and her husband Benjamin Macfall had been hauliers. They'd been sort of carrying goods mainly down to Stockton, the Stockton market. And she invited me in once to have a look, and much to my amazement, this is in 1967, this photograph was taken. This had been the post office in the 1920s, and it hadn't changed one bit. It still had the old scales on the counter and an old oil lamp. It was amazing. And in the back room was this wonderful, gleaming Yorkshire range, fully functioning. Probably worth a fortune now, but whether it's there or not, who knows. And even more amazing, in the kitchen it still had a pump. Not a tap. He still had a pump in the old sink. And it worked. And that's the old shop as it is now in 2013 with what was the post office next door. And this is the date stone on the primitive chapel in Queen Street. When I was a kid it used to be a greengrocer's run by a fellow called Peach. Now it's a private house. And this is a view of Wilton Green, 1967, and you can see the play area with a little tractor there, half buried. This cooling tower was on ICI's nylon works, which was blown up in 2000, I think it was 2012, and the whole of the nylon works has disappeared completely. It was a huge place, massive. Now there's absolutely nothing there at all. And these are some of the children of the original residents in Wilton Green, 1949. And these are the original residents, as I can remember, in Wilton Green. Get a bit closer, you might be able to see them a bit better. This is Wilton Green 2013. It doesn't change very much. This is the chapel in the village. When the chapel closed it was removed and it's now in the Wesleyan Chapel on Fabian Road in Eston. And the chapel and the chapel school room have gone, and these cottages have been built there in their place. This is the bottom of Chapel Street. This used to be the chip shop, owned by a family called Pearsons. These are the Parrington Place houses. The road is Pasture Lane, and this is a view taken from outside of what is now the new school building. These bungalows are chestnut. He's called George Elderfield, and he was a deputy in the Eston Mines, Trustee Mines, and he is on the photographs of the last shift coming out of Trustee Mine. I spoke to him at great length about mining. We had quite long conversations about it, before he died. There's another one of the sale. This fellow here was called Scaife, Len Scaife. Was it Len? He had apparently been a crack shot with a catapult when he was a kid. So that he was known as Pewleye Scaife. It followed him all his life. Pewleye being a sort of local word for a catapult. And this is all the old machinery lined up in the field to the south of Lazenby. The bypass goes across here now during Lambert's sale. Much of it had no more value than scrap value. This was something that used to make sheaves. It used to fit on the back of a thrasher. It should have been in some museum then. There's another ancient thing. I think it's a turnip drill for sowing turnip seeds. It's at one time being pulled by horses, and you can see the handles there where you hung on to this thing, where it had been modified to be pulled by a tractor. But it was junk. This is a view of Lazenby from the north. This is Pasture Lane, and just on the right hand side where this photograph was taken were the powder houses, where the local village miners stored their powder. They had to buy it and keep it themselves. In the old days they used to keep it at home, but it was always regarded as very unsafe. And in the distance there you can see this is Moore's stockyard. It was a very small farm, about 40 acres I think at the time, and the farmer, Billy Moore, used to live in the village. There wasn't a house attached to these buildings, and it was here where Turner's last steam thrashing took place, in that stockyard there. And in Moore's stockyard was this ancient pump. Someone had smashed the handle off, unfortunately. It was one of several in the village, most of which had gone. This guy on the traction engine is called Fred Scaife, and this fellow here is called Len Scaife. I don't know whether they're related or not. Eventually this engine was sold off at the sale for 400 quid to a fellow called Connor from Lincolnshire. It's still on the go. Must be worth, God knows now, £100,000 now. And this is the last thrashing at Moore's farm. Last steam thrashing anyway by Turner's about 1955. These are the various incumbents. Charlie Turner was the boss of the outfit. He's having their 10 o'clocks. That's just another view of the last of the steam threshing. Getting towards the bottom of the stack about now. You see him just throwing shelves up off this stack onto the top of the thrashing machine. This is a Jones wire baler. He used to make the balers with wire. Great big heavy balers they were. This was a sort of U-shaped thing here. They used to push through with a wire on it. This fella's making them there. Although this is a demonstration somewhere. But they were the balers which were used by turners when they were thrashing. This is an article in the Evening Gazette in 1970 when Charles Turner's Farmers' Friends had their 100th centenary. I'll just go down it. If you want to read it, you can just use the stop button on your computer. It was a fascinating place to go and visit. We used to go down there. They're the saddler, and if you got a hole in the case of your football, you used to go down there, and he would sew it up, repair it. Anyway, in 2012 they called it a day sold up, and they are no more. When I was a kid, there used to be about 6 of these lined up alongside Turner's Yard. They hadn't been taxed since about, I think it was 1950, and it was £2 10 shillings to tax them. And they were, I remember that they were taken away to a scrapyard in South Bank and scrapped. I think they were sold for £15 each, so they must be worth £15,000 or even more, £50,000 or even more now. If only we'd hung on to them. Anyway, this was the last one that Turner's hung on to. The rumour was that if they ever got rid of the last traction engine, the company would go bust. Anyway, they did in fact sell it in the end, this engine. And many years later, in 2012, they have in fact sold up and packed in. And this is one of their trade postcards, a photograph of it. Why you would need so many different bill hooks, I have no idea. I suppose each person had their own preferences. And this is Lazenby about 1880. You still see pasture lane there. It was a very, very small place. Interesting that the road came along here and then right across what is now the golf course. And this was converted into the west entrance, the drive into Wilton Castle along here. And if you stand here and look across this field, these trees are still there 100 years later, and you can see the line of this road going across this field here. And along the golf course there's a flat area. But the owner of Wilton Estate, Mr. Lowther, or Captain Lowther I think he was, he decided that he didn't want this public road here, so he had it closed off. So the road went round through the village then, and along here. There you can see it now. This was in 1967. Whether they're still there, I suspect they are, most of them. You can still see the line of the trees all these years later. It's 100 years later, in fact. These trees were obviously in the hedgerow. This was the road out of Lazenby going towards Eston, and this was when it was being tarmacked. And the interesting thing is you can see two chimneys there on the hillside, which were at the top of New Bank. And the other thing you notice there, that there's no police house either. You can see the at the top of the slab, the original building where a fellow called Helm lived with his wife. He was a gamekeeper on the Wilton Estate. And this was the old road in from the west, from the Eston end. The Eston Road houses on the right hand side. This was coming round from Eston, coming down into Lazenby. The bypass goes across just about where that cyclist is now. This was the old road into Lazenby from the east, coming from Redcar. Just before the bypass was opened, you can see the bypass being built there. The bypass veered off at this point on the left hand side. And you can see Lazenby Farm there behind that pole. And that's looking west. Sort of just to the right of the centre there is what is now Greystones Roundabout. This is standing on the same spot, looking east across the field to the south of Lazenby. And this is looking east, sorry. And this is looking west from Lazenby farm end. That's a school wood there with a great chasm in the middle where it's been cleared for the road to pass through it. And this is Lazenby farm end of the bypass. There used to be an entrance into Lazenby from the bypass there, but it's been closed off recently. This is looking down Bunkers. This used to be the main sledging run in the winter time. Now it's unbelievable, it's the size of these trees. It used to be quite open. It's very, very steep. But somebody's just come up in a Mitsubishi Jeep. I've never seen anyone come up here in a four-wheeled vehicle before. And at this point here, there's a little dog-leg right. And if you didn't make that corner, you ploughed straight into a fence. With an enormous smack, there was a great big post there. When we were lads in the 50s, this was what we regarded as our territory. We roamed it every spare minute we could get. It was a great place for tarsi swings and swimming in ponds and collecting newts, catapult fights, photographing badgers, birds nesting, just generally doing things as lads did in those days. Now when you go up there it's just a wilderness. You're lucky if you see anybody at all. This is Lazenby. Two reservoirs there. This is Wilton Green. They were the houses built for the ICI executives who came to start up Wilton site when we arrived in 1947. Wilton Estate was still green fields,